These, see if you think these look better since I turned them around. I turned around 3 out of the 4 of them.
Yeah, that won't hit anymore, right?
It don't look like it.
Okay.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
What do you think? See how do I move that? That way?
Yeah. Yep, that does the cylinder.
Oh, we got a bushing falling out down here.
Right.
Right there.
Yep. I thought I brought one just that size
You
too.
may have. I haven't got down there yet. I'm just thinking, would it be feasible for when I go tonight to disconnect this right here and take this part with me? And I can fix what I wonder holds that square thing onto the shaft. Do you think that's set screwed on? Or will we not know until we slide that down? And
I don't know.
all we need to do is unhook those hoses, I guess.
Yeah. That's all that's holding that on. Then you have these two that are going down to to that.
They're all bundled in rubber hose and crap.
Yeah.
Would that be feasible just to cut that hose in the middle where we can get at it up in here somewhere?
Yeah, and then join it back together.
Join it?
As opposed to trying to take this off and disconnect it in there.
Which we could do that too. Either one would work.
Yeah, it might be better to take this off.
That sleeve's probably going to have to come off anyway, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
To see what kind of condition that's in.
I know, we're just imagining it looks perfect in there.
It could be all falling apart.
Yeah. I happened to catch the horn of that train on an audio recording. And I'm using it in one of my new original songs. But I was hoping that the train would keep having that same sound, but it's gone.
This little thing is bugging me. There. There.
Well, I just released video number 3 for the Bear-A-Dise restoration, and it got 45 views within the first 60 seconds.
Wow.
So you're now a star, so everybody wants to know who this guy is. This is Tim. He's been my assistant now since 2010, I think. Off and on. Now how are you going to remember where all those screws and stuff go?
I'll put it back in the holes. So I don't have to remember.
How are you going to remember which one is the forearm and which one is the upper arm?
Well, holes are in a different place. One's longer than the other.
Want to mark it as well?
Well, if I had
so you don't have to figure it out?
black, it'd be alright. Or it might just get stuck. Looks like the wrist joint here is the culprit right there. It looks like that's got snap rings in it.
Will that pin come out?
Or I could just take these 2 bolts out right here. That might be the easiest thing to do. Come on, go in. I thought those were supposed to go in easy.
Yeah, they kind of do.
Alright, let's see. Oh! Wow. I'm going to have a longer wrench than that.
Want me to go get a bigger crescent?
No, I need like a box end probably. on, is that going to do what I want to do? That'll get rid of that pin, and I'll still have this to go with. I wonder why that's in two pieces. You think they thought this would wear out this piano hinge?
You got me. But that hinge is a typical hinge that we use in a number of places. So they probably wanted to adapt it so that it could be
I mean, I wonder why they didn't weld it on instead of bolting it on.
Well, if they welded it on, you wouldn't be able to screw it off and get that piece off.
Well, maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's the answer. Yeah, maybe it was. Yeah.
Is there anything in there that looks surprising?
Well, I'm not sure. I haven't got up there yet to look at it from above.
That's a funny little gadget there. On
what that does.
In that, is it an extension?
It's more like it's a stop, maybe.
Ah, I wonder what's in
there. Or maybe
there.
it hides the fact that that's a rod. If any of that shows through the glove or something.
I don't know.
Maybe it keeps grease from getting on the glove.
Nah.
Don't know.
You're good at guessing. I'll give you that.
Well, just thinking, you know.
Probably one of my old designers will watch this video and say, "No, no, that's. Let me write a comment. I'll tell you what that's for."
Why did he think that?
Any one of you guys can tell me what that's for? Yeah. Let's hear it.
Wonder how many of your old designers are still out there watching your videos.
None.
None.
They could care less.
Get to the top one right there. The bottom one's down here, I think. Top.
Lower. Now you screwed it all up. I wanted to say bottom.
Yep. I'm a nonconformist. That's all we need right there. Now we're gonna have to mark these too. Of course, these will be intuitive where they go, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't mark those. I don't think you can mark that tiny.
LW.
Sure.
I'm gonna put a U on this one.
I'll put you on it.
Okay. His spinal cord is out.
It's just hanging out.
Now we have to put Spock's brain back in. Now, let's see. We want to take this bolt out. I'm just a little wondering why it doesn't fit on this any tighter than it does. See how loose that is?
Well, was it wallered out?
It's a little hard to tell. When I look at that, it almost looks like it's getting wider at the bottom. I'm wondering, since they welded that, this could have cracked open, and when they welded this back, they didn't get it pinched back down to the right diameter. That could be why it's a little loose.
Maybe we could shim it.
Maybe I could, when I grind that weld off, I can pinch it back, cut it, and pinch it back together. But I don't see any crack on the inside. Or do I? I think I do. See, when you look right down in there, you see a little bright line that goes down about an inch?
That's a crack.
That almost looks like the crack that they tried to weld up.
Yeah. Maybe they did weld it up. Maybe it's not.
Well, that's their weld right there and there.
But I mean, is it still cracked or is it fixed?
Well, kind of both. That weld is too cold, and that's probably why you can still see the crack on the inside. So probably the nice thing to do, I'll grind that off, and then I'll make a plate that comes from this edge down to almost to the pin. And I'll just weld all the way around it like an 1/8 inch thick. And then another one over here. What we ought to do is make a measurement of that with the micrometer.
Want me to get a micrometer?
Yeah, I'd say that's 3/4, but I like to measure it. Yeah, that's about 3/4.
About?
Probably it's worn a little bit. It's about 7/40. Well, let's see.
Alrighty. So Tim is going to explain to us what he did with Billy Bob's arm and where it sits now.
Well, we found Billy Bob's arm in a pretty bad state. Some previous owner or operator had apparently had a problem with this piece, probably just cracking or something due to the fact that it was set really, really hard and probably cracked the welds, and maybe the piece just broke completely off. So when we found it, somebody had welded this piece on, which isn't even a creative engineering part. In fact, it's such an odd part, I've never seen a piece of aluminum like that. Don't know where they got it. It must have been something they just had laying around the shop. But the problem was that the wall thickness and the inner diameter were completely incorrect for the stub that comes out of his shoulder that this piece slips down onto. It's a solid square piece about 2 inches long, and it's supposed to fit tight in that socket. And this piece, being too thin, had a bigger diameter inside, so when they put it on, it could wiggle. So all the time that the arm moved, this thing was twisting on that stub, and that constant twisting caused the corners of this tube to fatigue and crack all the way down all 4 corners. And then after that started getting loose that way, it walled out the holes. So every hole in this thing was all walled out, and the original welds were cracking down here where they'd welded it on. So I happened to have a piece of the original material of the proper wall thickness, so we just cut a piece out that was the proper length, and went to take all this completely apart and welded the new piece on down here. And I took this block off and remachined it and straightened it. It was all bent out of shape like a Pringles potato chip. So I put that in the hydraulic press and straightened it and remachined it and squeezed the end back down to the proper diameter so this air cylinder would fit snug in it again. And re-welded the whole thing back on. I put in plenty of welds back on here. It was actually a fairly hard thing to weld on because of the thickness of this 3/4 inch block down here. So
because it's thick or thin?
Because it's thick. I had to use all 200 amps of my welder, and still just barely. I had to give it some time to get hot enough to get penetration on that big thick part. It's also difficult when you're welding a really thick part onto a really thin part. That makes it a little more tricky, but it welded fine. And I put you plenty of weld on there, so it'll put up with some abuse now for quite a while.
Okay, let's see the back side where the welds are.
Okay. If we turn it around here, you can see there's welds all the way around this 360, and then there's welds all the way around this piece 360. If you look down here, you can kind of see the welds under there. And then there's actually welds up inside the gaps there and all around this thing. So there's plenty of beef there. Should be holding it on for longer than the rest of it will last. So we should be in good shape there for another 25 years on that part.
Okay, good.
Something else will break next. We haven't overhauled.
Okay. Okay, good. So I guess the next thing we'll do is put that arm back on.
Yep, she's ready to go back on and tune it up and move on to the next character, I guess.
Okay, great.
We can throw this part in the trash.
Yeah.